The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through stars, planets, and the space between. For millennia, the Jedi believed they understood this power, that it was the domain of the righteous, a gift to be studied and respected. The Sith knew better. They understood that the Force had depths the Jedi feared to explore, shadows where true power dwelled. But neither Jedi nor Sith could have predicted what would happen when something from beyond the Force itself, something spawned not from midi-chlorians or mystical energy, but from literal hell, tore through the fabric of space and crashed into their galaxy. On the smuggler's moon of Nar Shaddaa, where neon lights painted grease-stained streets in sickly colors, and the Hutt cartel's influence ran deeper than any Republic or Empire law, the night shift proceeded as it always did. Cantinas overflowed with smugglers, spice dealers, and bounty hunters. Pleasure districts catered to every vice imaginable across 1,000 species. In the vertical city's lower levels, where sunlight never reached and desperation pooled like toxic waste, the forgotten masses scraped together survival while crime lords grew fat on their suffering. Then the sky tore open. It started as a sound, a frequency that shouldn't exist, that made sentient beings' teeth ache and caused nearby electronics to spark and die. Overhead, reality itself seemed to ripple, like the surface of a pond disturbed by an invisible hand. A crack appeared in the atmosphere, bleeding colors that had no name, hues that organic eyes weren't designed to process. The rift expanded with the sound of 1,000 screams compressed into a single moment. And through it something fell. The figure plummeted through Nar Shaddaa's polluted sky like a meteor wrapped in chains. Red energy crackled across its form, not the blue-white of Force lightning or the plasma of blaster fire, but something older, something that reeked of brimstone and damnation. The fall should have killed anything mortal. Instead, the figure crashed through the roof of an abandoned warehouse in Sector G-17, one of the moon's most lawless districts, with an impact that registered on seismographs across the entire level. Silence followed, then slowly the thing began to move. Al Simmons had experienced death before. He remembered the alley in New York, the betrayal, the flames consuming his body as Jason Wynn's men burned him alive. He remembered making the deal in hell's darkest pit, trading his soul for one more chance to see his wife. He remembered waking up 5 years later in an alley, transformed into something neither human nor demon, a Hellspawn, bound to serve Malbolge's army in the coming Armageddon. But this was different. His symbiote, the living necroplasmic costume that had fused with his resurrected corpse, screamed inside his mind, not with words but with raw sensation, wrongness, displacement, starvation, asterisk. The connection to hell, that umbilical cord of dark energy that had sustained him since his resurrection, had been severed. Spawn could feel it like a phantom limb, reaching for power that was no longer there. He pushed himself to his knees, chains rattling as they coiled around his body protectively. His cape, a sentient extension of the symbiote, spread across the warehouse floor like spilled blood. Through his mask's white glowing eyes, Spawn surveyed his surroundings. The warehouse was clearly abandoned, filled with corroded machinery and cargo containers bearing markings in languages he'd never seen. But the architecture was wrong, too vertical, too alien. Through holes in the roof, he glimpsed a cityscape that belonged in a fevered dream. Buildings stacked impossibly high, air traffic flowing in organized chaos, and everywhere lights. Neon advertisements in alien scripts. Ships that looked like they belonged in a science fiction film. And above it all, stars. Not Earth's familiar constellations, but something entirely foreign. Where the hell am I? Spawn's voice emerged as a rasp, distorted by the symbiote. His suit pulsed, sending information directly into his consciousness. Atmosphere, breathable but heavily polluted. Gravity, slightly lighter than Earth. Energy signature, completely unfamiliar. And most disturbing, the necroplasm counter that usually displayed his remaining power showed a number that made his dead heart sink. 9,512 units remaining, not regenerating. On Earth, near Hell's dimensional nexuses or in places steeped in sin and suffering, his necroplasm recharged slowly. Here, wherever here was, that connection didn't exist. He was running on reserves, and every use of his powers would drain him closer to nothing. Unauthorized landing detected, a mechanical voice suddenly announced. Spawn's head snapped toward the sound. A spherical droid no larger than a basketball floated through one of the warehouse's broken windows. It hovered in place, a single photoreceptor focusing on him with a mechanical whir. Scanning. Life form unregistered in Imperial databases. Alert. Possible Force-sensitive presence. Transmitting coordinates to local security forces. Spawn's chains lashed out instinctively, wrapping around the droid with a wet, organic sound. The machine sparked and died, crushed into scrap. But the damage was done. It had transmitted something. Spawn's military training, honed in Force Recon and later as a CIA operative, kicked in immediately. He'd made noise. He'd been detected. Hostile forces would arrive soon. He needed intelligence. Location, situation, threats, resources. Spawn moved to the warehouse entrance, cape flowing behind him like liquid shadow. The streets of Nar Shaddaa's lower levels assaulted his senses, a cacophony of alien languages, the stench of exotic chemicals and unwashed bodies, and everywhere the thrum of desperation. Beings of species he couldn't name hurried past, keeping their heads down. Some glanced at him and quickly looked away, recognizing a predator when they saw one. "Credits for information," a voice called out. Spawn turned to see a Rhodian, green-skinned, multifaceted eyes taper like snout, leaning against a nearby wall. The alien's translator device rendered his squeaking language into something Spawn's symbiote could process. "You look lost, friend. Lost and dangerous. Dangerous gets attention on Nar Shaddaa. Attention gets you dead." Spawn approached, chains rattling softly with each step. The Rhodian's confidence wavered as he got closer, the alien's hand drifting toward a blaster on his hip. "Where am I?" Spawn demanded. "Nar Shaddaa, the smuggler's moon. Yulmura Vertical District, Sector G-17. The Rhodian's eyes darted nervously. "You some kind of bounty hunter. Never seen armor like that. Custom job." "What year?" The Rhodian blinked all three eyelids in confusion. "Year. It's 14 BBY by the Imperial calendar." "What? You been in carbonite or something?" "Imperial calendar, 14 BBY. None of it meant anything to Spawn. What's the political situation?" Now the Rhodian looked genuinely concerned. "What rock did you crawl out from under? The Empire controls everything. Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader, stormtroopers on every corner of every civilized world. The Jedi are dead, got wiped out in Order 66 over 5 years ago. Rebels are starting to make noise, but they're scattered, weak. Empire rules through fear, and anyone who objects gets a visit from the Inquisitors." The alien paused. "Speaking of which, you setting off that probe droid was stupid. Imperial security doesn't mess around with unregistered Force users." "Force users?" The Rhodian stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "The Force, the mystical energy that binds the galaxy together. Jedi and Sith. Please tell me you've at least heard of." A high-pitched scream cut through the air. Both Spawn and the Rodian turned toward the sound. Down the street, in a narrow alley between towering hab blocks, 3 armored figures had cornered a Twi'lek woman and her child. The armor was white plastid, identical on each figure, stormtroopers, Spawn's symbiote identified, processing data from overheard conversations and visual information. Imperial soldiers. Curfew violation, one stormtrooper announced, his voice filtered through a helmet speaker. You were warned about operating after dark. The penalty is confiscation of goods and detention. Please, the Twi'lek woman begged, her head tails trembling with fear. My daughter is sick. I was only trying to reach the clinic. Regulations are regulations. The lead stormtrooper raised his blaster rifle. Resisting Imperial authority results in. He never finished the sentence. Spawn's chains erupted from his body like striking serpents, crossing the 50-foot distance in a heartbeat. They wrapped around the lead stormtrooper's neck and lifted him off the ground. The other 2 soldiers spun, weapons raised, but Spawn was already moving, a blur of red and black that closed the distance faster than their aim could track. His fist, augmented by necroplasmic strength, punched through the second stormtrooper's chest plate as if it were paper. The soldier dropped without a sound. The third managed to fire a shot, a bolt of red energy that Spawn's cape deflected effortlessly, before chains wrapped around his legs and slammed him into the Duracrete wall hard enough to crack both the wall and his armor. The lead stormtrooper, still suspended by the chains around his throat, clawed uselessly at the living metal. Spawn pulled him close until they were face to face, his glowing white eyes boring into the trooper's helmet visor. Listen carefully, Spawn growled, his voice carrying the weight of hell itself. You're going to deliver a message to whoever runs this place. Tell them that if I see anyone in your uniform threatening innocents again, I'll do worse than kill them. I'll make them wish they'd never been born. Understand? The stormtrooper nodded frantically. Spawn released him, and the soldier scrambled to his feet and ran, leaving his dead comrades behind. The Twi'lek woman stared at Spawn with a mixture of terror and awe. Her daughter peeked out from behind her mother's legs, eyes wide. Thank you, the woman whispered. The Force bless you, whoever you are. Spawn felt his necroplasm counter tick down, 9,499. The brief fight had cost him barely anything, but the principle remained. He was on a budget now. Every power he used brought him closer to helplessness. Get your daughter to the clinic, he said simply, then turned away. The Rodian informant was gone, fled the moment violence erupted. Smart. Spawn didn't blame him. He walked deeper into Sector G-17's maze of alleys and side streets, processing what he'd learned. This galaxy, and he was becoming increasingly certain he was no longer in his own universe, operated under different rules. An empire, stormtroopers, something called the Force, mystical energy, and apparently his necroplasmic powers registered as something related to this force. That probe droid had transmitted his location. More soldiers would come, maybe something worse. Spawn needed a base of operations, a place to lay low while he figured out how to survive in this universe, and how to get home. His thoughts drifted to Wanda, to the life he'd lost, to the slim hope that one day he might break free of Malbolge's control. Now, cut off from hell entirely, was he finally free? Or just stranded and dying slowly? Above him, the sound of engines grew louder. Spawn looked up to see 3 sleek starfighters descending toward his position, TIE fighters, his symbiote identified, processing their distinctive twin-panel design and the Empire's emblem painted on their hulls. They were coming for him. In a cantina 3 levels up, A scarred human smuggler named Jace Kellen set down his drink and watched the Imperial response through the grimy window. He'd seen the probe droid footage before it was destroyed, seen the figure in red and black who dropped out of nowhere, seen the way he moved, the chains, the raw power. That, Jace murmured to himself, is either the best opportunity or the worst trouble I've ever seen. He decided to find out which. In the smuggler's moon's economy, information was currency, and nobody knew what this stranger was. That made him valuable to the right buyer or the right rebel cell. Jace finished his drink and headed for the door, pulling his comlink from his jacket. "Kale, it's Jace. Yeah, I know it's late. Listen, you know how you've been looking for someone who can handle themselves against Imperials. I think I just found your man. Or, thing, it's complicated. Meet me at the usual spot." As he spoke, the sound of blaster fire erupted from the lower levels. The TIE fighters were engaging their target, but unlike the usual one-sided Imperial victories, this fight sounded different. This sounded like the target was shooting back and winning. Jace smiled despite himself. The Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for 5 years, crushing any resistance with mechanical efficiency. Maybe, just maybe, this stranger would be the spark that proved the Empire could bleed. In the darkness of Sector G-17, surrounded by the wreckage of TIE fighters he'd torn from the sky with chains and raw fury, Spawn stood among the flames. His cape billowed in the heat, his eyes blazing like twin stars. The necroplasm counter in his consciousness read 9,287. Each victory had a cost. But Al Simmons had been fighting losing battles since the day he died. If this galaxy thought it could break him, Empire, Force, or whatever else it threw at him, it would learn the same lesson Hell had learned. You can't kill someone who's already been to Hell and refuse to stay dead. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Inquisitorius headquarters on Coruscant received the transmission at 300 hours Imperial Standard Time. The duty officer, a former Jedi Temple guard who'd survived Order 66 by pledging loyalty to the new regime, watched the footage 3 times before activating the priority alert. The holographic recording showed grainy footage from multiple security cameras across Nar Shaddaa's Sector G-17. A figure in crimson and black, moving with impossible speed. Chains that seemed alive, tearing through durasteel and flesh with equal ease. 3 TIE fighters, each piloted by trained Imperial Navy personnel, reduced to burning wreckage in under 90 seconds. And at the center of it all, those eyes, white and burning like stars pulled from the void and given purpose. The duty officer knew what darkness looked like. He'd seen Jedi fall to the dark side during the Clone Wars, watched friends become enemies as rage and fear corrupted them. But this was something else entirely. The figure moved through the shadows like they were home, like darkness was a living thing that obeyed his command. Within the hour, 2 figures arrived at the Inquisitorius fortress on Coruscant's industrial sector. They moved with the predatory grace of hunters who'd spent years tracking the galaxy's most dangerous prey, surviving Jedi who'd escaped Order 66. The 5th brother stood nearly 7 feet tall, his gray skin marked with ritual scars from his homeworld. Yellow eyes burned beneath a heavy brow, and his crimson lightsaber hung from his belt like a promise of violence. He'd been a Jedi Temple guard once, before Palpatine showed him that true strength came not from the Jedi's weak philosophy, but from embracing passion and power. Beside him, the the seventh sister cut a leaner but no less dangerous figure. Mirialan features marked with geometric tattoos, she moved with calculated precision. Her twin lightsaber, capable of spinning like a deadly disc, marked her as one of the Inquisitorius's most effective hunters. She'd personally executed 14 Jedi since Order 66. Each kill brought her closer to the power she craved. They stood before the holographic display, watching the Nar Shaddaa footage in silence. "Play it again," the fifth brother rumbled, "the moment he destroys the first TIE fighter." The footage rewound. The mystery figure stood in the center of a street as the TIE fighter made its attack run, twin laser cannons spitting deadly energy. But instead of dodging or taking cover like any rational being, the figure simply raised his arms. His cape, if it could be called that, suddenly expanded, spreading like wings to create a shield of living darkness. The laser bolt struck the cape and simply stopped, absorbed, dissipated. Then the chains lashed out, wrapping around the TIE fighter's viewport. With a single violent motion, the figure yanked the entire starfighter from the sky and slammed it into the street hard enough to trigger its fuel cells. The explosion should have killed him. Instead, he walked through the flames untouched. "That's not the Force," the seventh sister said softly. "I've seen dark side users, encountered fallen Jedi drunk on rage and hate. This is different." "It feels like the dark side," the fifth brother countered. The sensors registered a massive disturbance. Suffering, death, darkness, all the markers of a Force-sensitive touched by shadow. "But there's no finesse, no control. He fights like a brawler, not a trained Force user." She zoomed in on the figure's stance during combat. "See, no lightsaber forms, no elegant technique, just raw brutality. Which makes him either an untrained Force-sensitive who stumbled into immense power," the fifth brother said, "or something we've never encountered before." He turned to the duty officer. "What happened after this footage ends?" "Local Imperial garrison sent 2 squads of stormtroopers. None returned. We recovered helmet cam footage from 1 trooper before whatever happened to him." The duty officer's hand trembled slightly as he activated another holofile. "Warning, this footage contains..." "Show us," the seventh sister commanded. The new recording showed a stormtrooper's point of view as his squad moved through Sector G-17's abandoned industrial zone. Ahead, the crimson figure waited in the center of an intersection, perfectly still. The squad leader called for surrender. The figure didn't respond. Then it moved. The recording became a nightmare blur of motion. Chains erupted from the figure like striking snakes, each one moving independently with terrifying precision. One trooper was lifted off the ground, another slammed into a wall. The POV trooper raised his blaster rifle, but before he could fire, the figure was simply there, inches away. Those burning white eyes filled the camera's view. A hand clawed, wrapped in red energy, reached toward the camera. The trooper's scream cut off abruptly. The last image before the feed died was darkness closing in, and something that looked like green energy being pulled from the trooper's body directly into the figure's hand. "He drained him," the fifth brother whispered, "pulled the life right out of him." "That's a Sith technique," the seventh sister noted. "Advanced dark side mastery, but no Sith moves like that. No Sith wears whatever that armor is." She paused. "Lord Vader needs to see this." The fifth brother nodded slowly. "Agreed, but we hunt first. If this is a surviving Jedi who's fallen completely to darkness, we bring him before the Emperor. If he's something else..." His hand drifted to his lightsaber. "Then we eliminate the threat." "The trail leads to Nar Shaddaa," the duty officer said, "but the smuggler's moon is outside direct Imperial jurisdiction. The Hutt cartel. The Hutts will cooperate or be reminded why the Empire tolerates their existence," the fifth brother said coldly. "Prepare our shuttle. We leave immediately." As the two Inquisitors departed, the duty officer allowed himself a moment of doubt. He'd seen the recordings of Darth Vader in action, witnessed the Dark Lord's terrible power firsthand. Even Vader's mastery of the Force paled in comparison to the raw, brutal efficiency displayed by the mystery figure. Whatever this thing was, it didn't fight like it feared death. It fought like it had already died and come back angrier. On Nar Shaddaa, in a maintenance tunnel 3 levels below Sector G-17, Spawn leaned against a corroded wall and assessed his situation. His necroplasm counter read 8,847. The fight with the TIE fighters had been expensive. Using his cape as an energy shield consumed power, and bringing down 3 starfighters had required significant strength. The stormtrooper squads that followed had been easier, but he'd made a crucial discovery during that encounter. When he'd grabbed the trooper, his symbiote had reacted instinctively, reaching for the energy signature it detected within the soldier's body. Not necroplasm, not hellfire, but something else. Something the locals called the Force. His suit had tried to drain it, to consume that energy like it once consumed the souls of the damned. It had worked, barely. The trooper's life force had provided maybe 50 points of necroplasm recharge. Hardly efficient, but it proved something critical. His symbiote could adapt. It could learn to feed on this universe's energy source. The implications disturbed him. On Earth, Spawn had always drawn a hard line. He killed when necessary, when evil left him no choice, but he didn't feed on innocence. The symbiote's hunger was something he kept caged, controlled. Here, starving and cut off from hell, that control would become harder to maintain. "You're thinking too loud," a voice said from the darkness. Spawn's chains deployed instantly, ready to strike. A figure emerged from the tunnel's shadows with hands raised in a placating gesture. Human male, maybe 30, with the kind of weathered face that spoke of hard living. He wore a smuggler's typical gear, vest, blaster holster, practical boots, and carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who'd survived where others hadn't. "Name's Jace Kellen," the man said. "I'm not your enemy. Actually, I might be your only friend on this moon right now." "I don't have friends," Spawn growled. "Fair enough. How about mutually beneficial associate?" Jace lowered his hand slowly. "See, I'm what you might call an information broker. I know things, I connect people, and I've got contacts throughout the sector. And right now, my contacts are telling me that the Empire has sent Inquisitors to Nar Shaddaa, specifically to hunt you." Spawn's eyes narrowed. Inquisitors. Force-sensitive hunters, former Jedi who turned to the dark side, pledged loyalty to the Emperor. They tracked down any surviving Jedi from Order 66 and either turned them or killed them. Jace leaned against the opposite wall, deliberately casual. "They sense Force users through some mystical mumbo-jumbo I don't pretend to understand. And apparently, you lit up their sensors like a life-day tree." "I'm not a Force user." "Doesn't matter what you are. Matters what they think you are." Jace pulled out a datapad showing security footage from the upper levels. 2 of them just landed at the spaceport. 5th brother and 7th sister, real creative with names, the Empire. They're asking questions, bribing informants, and they're good at their job. Give them 6 hours, maybe less, and they'll find this tunnel. Spawn considered killing the smuggler and moving on, but information was valuable, and this Jace seemed to know the local landscape. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" Jace laughed. "Buddy, I want to not be here when those Inquisitors start tearing through every hideout on this moon. But more importantly, there's someone who wants to meet you. Someone who's been fighting the Empire since it rose to power. Someone who might actually be able to help you understand what you're up against. Not interested in joining any rebellion." "Who said anything about joining?" Jace pushed off the wall. "Just a conversation. You want to survive here. You need to understand this galaxy. The Force, the Empire, how things work. Otherwise, you're just flailing in the dark until something bigger and meaner puts you down." Spawn's military instincts warred with his natural distrust. This could be a trap, but Jace was right about one thing: he was operating blind. Every decision he'd made since arriving had been reactive, defensive. He needed intelligence. He needed strategy. "One conversation," Spawn said finally. "I don't like what I hear, I walk. Anyone tries to stop me, they die." "Wouldn't dream of stopping you." Jace activated his comlink. "Kale, yeah," he agreed, "we're coming to you, ETA 30 minutes. He glanced at Spawn. "Can you, tone down the scary, maybe fold in the chains? My contact's a little jumpy." Spawn's chains retracted slowly, coiling back into his body. But his eyes never stopped burning, and his cape continued to move with subtle, unsettling life. "That'll have to do," Jace muttered. "Come on, stay close, stay quiet, and for the love of—" He paused. "Actually, what do you believe in?" "Nothing," Spawn said flatly. "Right, for the love of nothing. Don't kill anyone unless they shoot first." They moved through Nar Shaddaa's underworld like ghosts, Jace navigating the labyrinthine passages with practiced ease. Spawn followed, hyper-aware of his surroundings. His symbiote fed him constant information: heat signatures, structural weaknesses, potential threats. The military training never left you, even after death and resurrection. They emerged in what appeared to be an abandoned residential block, repurposed into a makeshift safe house. Inside, a single figure waited. Kale Oren didn't look like much, mid-20s, lean build, nervous energy. But Spawn's instincts, honed through years of black ops and supernatural warfare, immediately identified the young man as dangerous. The way he stood, the alertness in his eyes, the way his hand hovered near something hidden under his jacket. Then Kale drew it, and Spawn understood why Jace had mentioned the Force. The weapon ignited with a snap hiss, casting the room in blue light. A lightsaber, not the crimson blades the Inquisitors carried in the security footage Spawn had glimpsed, but blue as a summer sky. The blade hummed with barely contained energy, and even from across the room, Spawn could feel something radiating from it, not heat but presence, power. "So," Kale said, his voice tight with controlled fear and curiosity, "you're the one who's been carving through the Imperial garrison like they're made of paper. You're the one the Inquisitors are coming for." He raised the lightsaber slightly. "And you reek of darkness like nothing I've ever felt. So before we go any further, I need to know, what are you?" Spawn's cape stirred, shadows gathering around him like living things. His chains rattled softly, ready to deploy at the first sign of hostility. "I'm what happens," Spawn said, his voice carrying the weight of damnation and defiance. "When someone sells their soul to fight evil, dies in betrayal, and comes back refusing to serve anyone. I'm what hell spits out when it can't control what it created." He took a step forward, and Kale actually retreated despite himself. "I'm Spawn," he continued, "and whatever you think I am, whatever that force of yours is telling you about me, you're probably right to be afraid. Because I've got nothing left to lose, I don't belong in your galaxy, and I've got a very simple rule. I protect the innocent and I destroy anyone who hurts them. Empire, rebels, Force users, or whatever else gets in my way. Kale's lightsaber didn't waver, but something changed in his expression. Recognition. Understanding, maybe even hope. Then we might not be enemies after all, Kale said softly. He lowered his lightsaber but didn't deactivate it. Because that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Someone who doesn't play by the Empire's rules or anyone else's. Outside, on the landing platform 3 kilometers above, the 5th brother and 7th sister stepped off their shuttle and gazed down at the sprawling urban nightmare of Nar Shaddaa's lower levels. I can feel him, the 7th sister murmured. Down there, a wound in the Force bleeding darkness. Then we hunt, the 5th brother said simply. Their lightsabers ignited, twin crimson blades that cast the landing platform in blood-red light. The hunt had begun. The safe house fell silent except for the humming of Kale Oren's lightsaber. Spawn and the former Jedi Padawan stood facing each other, 2 beings touched by darkness for vastly different reasons, each trying to determine if the other was threat or ally. Jace Kellen, wisely, had moved to the far corner of the room. You feel wrong, Kale said finally, his voice strained. The Force, it reacts to you like you're a black hole. Not dark side, not light side, just absence, like you shouldn't exist in this reality. He paused and his lightsaber wavered. But underneath that wrongness I sense something else, purpose, pain, and something that might be righteousness. Spawn's cape settled around his shoulders, though it continued to ripple with subtle, unnatural movement. I don't know what your Force is. Where I come from, power doesn't come from mystical energy fields. It comes from hell itself, from deals made in darkness and resurrection through damnation. Hell, Kale's brow furrowed, like the Sith concept of chaos, a dimensional realm of pure dark side energy. No, Spawn's voice hardened. Hell, literal hell, demons, souls of the damned, eternal torment. I died serving my country, got betrayed by the man I trusted most, and made a deal with a demon lord named Malbalja. He brought me back as his soldier, a Hellspawn designed to lead his army in Armageddon. But I broke free of his control. I use his power to fight evil, to protect innocence, even though every time I use my abilities, I'm drawing from the same source that damned me. Kale stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he deactivated his lightsaber. That's either the truth or the most elaborate lie I've ever heard, and through the Force I can sense. He shook his head in wonder. You're telling the truth. You actually believe every word. Because it's real, Spawn said flatly. In this galaxy, Jace interjected from his corner, we've got the Force, light side and dark side. Jedi use the light, Sith use the dark. There's also stuff like Night Sister magic on Dathomir, the Bendu philosophy, the Church of the Force, lots of mystical traditions. But actual hell with demons and eternal damnation, he whistled low. That's new. Kale moved to a makeshift table covered in datapads and holographic projectors. He activated one, displaying a rotating image of the galaxy. You're not from our universe, are you? You came through some kind of dimensional rift. Didn't have much choice, Spawn admitted. My former master tried to drag me back to hell. The portal tore open, intersected with something. He gestured vaguely at the hologram. And I ended up here, cut off from hell's energy. My power is finite now. Every time I use it, I'm spending from a limited reserve. And you've been spending it fighting Imperial forces, Kale said. TIE fighters, stormtroopers, security droids. You've made yourself a priority target. He zoomed the hologram in on Nar Shaddaa. The Inquisitors will find you. They always do. They're former Jedi who turned to the dark side, and they're very, very good at hunting Force sensitives. I've dealt with hunters before. Not like these. Kale's expression darkened. The fifth brother is a brute, but he's incredibly strong. I've seen footage of him tearing through a rebel cell like paper. The seventh sister is cunning, analytical. She'll study you, find your weaknesses, and exploit them. Together, they've killed dozens of Jedi who survived Order 66. Spawn's eyes narrowed. This Order 66, what was it? Kale's face went pale. Even Jace looked uncomfortable. After a moment, the former Padawan spoke, his voice hollow with old grief. 5 years ago, the Clone Wars ended. The Republic had been fighting the Separatists with an army of clone soldiers, identical troops grown from a single genetic template. We thought they were loyal. We trusted them. His hand unconsciously moved to his side, where Spawn could see old scar tissue through a tear in his shirt. Then Chancellor Palpatine, who'd been playing both sides all along, revealed himself as a Sith Lord. He activated a control chip in every clone's brain with a single command, Order 66, execute the Jedi. The young man's voice cracked. In a single day, the Jedi Order was destroyed. 10,000 Jedi murdered by the soldiers they'd fought beside for 3 years. The temple burned, younglings slaughtered, masters betrayed. I survived because my master threw me from a gunship before the clones could kill us both. She fell 3,000 feet to save me. Spawn had seen atrocity before. He'd witnessed war crimes during his time as a soldier, had walked through hell itself and seen the depths of suffering. But the systematic extermination of an entire order of peacekeepers, executed by their own allies, struck a chord. Betrayal. He understood betrayal intimately. This Palpatine, Spawn said, he's your emperor now. Darth Sidious, Kale confirmed. The most powerful Sith Lord in a millennium. He manipulated the entire galaxy into war, used the conflict to seize emergency powers, and transformed the Democratic Republic into the Galactic Empire. Now he rules through fear, with Darth Vader as his enforcer and the Inquisitorius hunting any surviving Jedi. And you're still alive because... I hide, I move constantly, I help when I can, rebel cells, refugees, anyone fleeing Imperial oppression. But I'm careful. I rarely use the Force, never ignite my lightsaber unless absolutely necessary. Kale looked down at his weapon. Every time I tap into the Force, I risk detection. The Inquisitors can sense disturbances across star systems. That's why they're coming for me, Spawn realized. Your Force detected my arrival, my powers registered as... What exactly? Darkness, Kale said simply. Immense, ancient darkness that doesn't conform to Sith patterns. When you use your abilities, those chains, that cape, whatever necromantic energy you're wielding, it creates ripples in the Force. The Inquisitors feel those ripples and come hunting. Spawn processed this information with the tactical mind of a career soldier. If his powers made him detectable and these Inquisitors were actively hunting, then confrontation was inevitable. He could run, but they'd follow. He could hide, but he'd eventually need to use his abilities and give away his position. Or he could fight, take the battle to them on his terms. But his necroplasm counter nagged at his consciousness. 8,847 units, decreasing, not regenerating. You said my cape absorbed blaster fire, Spawn said, recalling the TIE fighter encounter. And when I grabbed that trooper, my suit tried to drain something from him. It felt like... The Force, Kale finished. All living beings generate Force energy, some more than others. You drained his life force. He looked troubled. That's a dark side technique, advanced, forbidden even among the Sith. The fact that you did it instinctively. My symbiote was trying to survive, Spawn said defensively. It's adapted to feed on souls, on suffering, on death. In my universe, that's how I recharge. Here, it's trying to find equivalent energy sources. The dark side is fueled by suffering, death, and strong emotions like anger and fear, Kale said slowly. If your symbiote can sense that energy, then I can feed on it. Spawn felt the implications sink in like stones in dark water. The Empire causes suffering everywhere it goes. You said it rules through fear. That means... It means this galaxy is a buffet for something like you, Jace said bluntly. Every Imperial atrocity, every act of oppression, every planet living in terror, that's all fuel for your power. The three of them stood in silence, contemplating the horrifying opportunity. But there's a cost, Kale said urgently. The dark side corrupts, it's seductive, addictive. Every Jedi who's fallen to darkness started by justifying small compromises. Just this once, they'd say. Just to save someone I love. Before they knew it, they'd become monsters. If you start feeding on the dark side, if you let your symbiote consume that energy freely, I'll become what the Empire thinks I am, Spawn finished. A dark side monster. Maybe worse, Kale said. The dark side twists people into reflections of their worst selves. If you're already from literal hell, already bound to demonic power. He trailed off, the implication clear. Spawn's fists clenched. This was the eternal dilemma of his existence. The symbiote gave him power to fight evil, but that power came from evil itself. He walked a razor's edge between damnation and redemption, between becoming the hero he wanted to be and the monster hell designed him as. I've fought this battle before, Spawn said quietly. Every day since I came back, I've had to resist the symbiote's hunger, its desire to consume and destroy. I won't let this dark side change that. Noble sentiment, Jace said. But if you don't recharge somehow, you're going to run out of power. And when you do, the Inquisitors will cut you down. So what's the plan? Starve yourself to death on principle or survive by any means necessary. Before anyone could answer, Kale suddenly stiffened. His hand flew to his lightsaber. They're here, close. I can feel them in the Force, two presences, dark and hungry, searching. How close? Spawn demanded. A few kilometers, maybe less. They're moving through the levels, questioning people following your trail. Kale's face had gone pale. We need to leave, now. If they find this safe house, if they find me. They'll torture you for information about other rebels, Jace finished. He was already moving, grabbing a go bag from beneath the table. I know a ship 3 sectors over. Captain owes me a favor. We can. No, Spawn said. His voice carried absolute certainty. Running puts you both at risk. They're hunting me, not you. I face them alone. That's suicide, Kale protested. You don't understand what you're up against. Inquisitors are trained in lightsaber combat, Force abilities, psychological warfare. I've killed demons, Spawn interrupted. I've fought angels and won. I've stood against Hell's armies and lived to tell about it. These Inquisitors might be dangerous, but I'm not running from more government thugs with magic swords. Despite himself, Kale felt a surge of hope. This being, this Spawn, radiated confidence that bordered on arrogance. But beneath it, Kale sensed something through the Force. Not darkness exactly, but terrible, implacable will. Spawn meant every word. He would stand and fight, no matter the odds. If you're going to face them, Kale said, making a decision that might doom him, you need to understand lightsaber combat. They'll use the Force to enhance their speed, strength, and precognition. They'll sense your attacks before you make them. Then I'll be unpredictable. It's not that simple. Kale stopped, seeing the futility. Spawn wouldn't be dissuaded. Fine. At least let me tell you what I know about the fifth brother and seventh sister, their fighting styles, their tactics. For the next 20 minutes, Kale briefed Spawn on everything he'd learned about the Inquisitors through rebel intelligence networks. The fifth brother favored overwhelming force and brutal directness. The seventh sister used misdirection and her spinning lightsaber to create unpredictable attack angles. Both could use the Force to throw objects, choke enemies from a distance, and sense intentions. Spawn absorbed the information with the focus of a soldier receiving a mission briefing. He asked tactical questions, mapped out the terrain in his mind, and calculated his necroplasm budget. One more thing, Kale said as they prepared to part ways. The dark side feeds on negative emotions. If they can make you angry, afraid, or hateful, they can potentially corrupt you, turn you into a weapon they can control. Spawn's laugh was bitter and cold. I've been angry since the day I died. Fear left me a long time ago, and hate, his eyes blazed brighter. I've got plenty of that, but it's focused. I hate evil. I hate those who prey on the weak. If your Inquisitors serve an empire built on fear and oppression, then they've already made themselves my enemy. Just remember, Kale said softly, the Jedi fell because they became convinced their way was the only way. Don't make the same mistake. Don't let certainty blind you to nuance. Spawn nodded once, then turned to leave. His cape billowed behind him, and for just a moment, Kale could have sworn he saw faces in the fabric, tortured, screaming faces. Then the moment passed, and Spawn was gone, disappearing into Nar Shaddaa's labyrinthine undercity. Jace exhaled slowly. That, he said, is either going to be the best thing that happened to the rebellion or the worst thing that happened to this galaxy. Maybe both, Kale murmured, watching the shadows where Spawn had vanished. In Sector G-17, among the wreckage of the battles Spawn had already fought, the fifth brother crouched beside the crushed remains of a stormtrooper helmet. His massive hand picked up the twisted metal, examining the way it had been compressed, not by machinery or explosive force, but by something organic, something that had squeezed with malevolent strength. He's close, the seventh sister said, her twin lightsaber spinning idly in her hand. The red blades created hypnotic patterns in the darkness. I can taste his presence in the Force. It's, she paused, searching for words. Alien, wrong, like reality itself rejects his existence here. Good, the fifth brother rumbled. He stood to his full imposing height, activating his own lightsaber. The crimson blade bathed his scarred features in bloody light. I'm tired of hunting frightened Jedi. This one wants to fight. Let's see how his darkness compares to ours. They moved deeper into the sector, following the trail of destruction and the sickening void in the Force that marked Spawn's passage. Behind them, a full platoon of stormtroopers followed, weapons ready. The Inquisitors had requested backup, not because they feared defeat, but because they wanted to study this anomaly before killing it. The Emperor had been very clear. Determine what this being was, assess whether it could be turned or controlled, and if neither option proved viable, eliminate it with extreme prejudice. The Empire tolerated no rivals to Palpatine's dark side supremacy. On a rooftop overlooking Sector G-17, Spawn waited. He'd chosen the location carefully, open enough to prevent ambush, high enough to control the battlefield, with multiple escape routes if the situation deteriorated beyond salvage. His military training, augmented by years of supernatural warfare, had taught him that terrain could make the difference between victory and death. His necroplasm counter read 8,721. The walk here, the simple act of existing, slowly drained his reserves. The symbiote was trying to adapt to this universe's energy signature, but adaptation took time he might not have. Below, he could see Imperial forces converging. Two figures in dark robes led the formation, and even from this distance, Spawn could sense something different about them. They radiated menace, moved with predatory purpose, and the red glow of their weapons painted the streets like rivers of blood. The Inquisitors had arrived. Spawn's chains stirred beneath his cape, eager for violence. His symbiote pulsed with dark hunger, whispering promises of power if he just let go, just feed, just consume. He pushed the whispers down, maintaining the iron control that had kept him from becoming a monster for so long. But as he watched the Inquisitors approach, servants of an empire built on fear and oppression, hunters who'd murdered dozens of peacekeepers, Spawn felt something inside him crystallize into cold, absolute certainty. These Inquisitors wanted to study him, wanted to determine if he could be controlled, turned, or eliminated. They were about to learn that some things can't be controlled. Some things are too angry to turn, and some things, especially things that have already died and come back, are impossible to eliminate. "Come on then," Spawn whispered to the approaching hunters. His eyes blazed like white fire in the darkness. "Let's see if your force can stand against hell." The fifth brother and seventh sister felt it at the same moment. A challenge, issued through something that wasn't quite the force but tasted like concentrated malevolence. They looked up as one, following the sensation to a rooftop 300 meters away. A figure stood silhouetted against Nar Shaddaa's neon sky. Red and black, burning eyes and a cape that moved like living shadow. Even from this distance, they could feel the wrongness radiating from him. A wound in the force that shouldn't exist. A darkness that predated the Sith, hell made manifest. There, the seventh sister breathed, not with fear but with anticipation. The hunt had reached its climax. Now came the kill. The fifth brother moved first, propelling himself upward with a force-enhanced leap that carried him 3 stories in a single bound. His massive frame crashed through the lower levels of the building where Spawn waited, demolishing corroded metal and duracrete as if they were paper. The seventh sister followed with more grace, her twin-bladed lightsaber spinning as she used the force to guide her ascent, moving from windowsill to ledge with predatory elegance. Spawn watched them come with the cold assessment of a trained killer. He'd fought enhanced beings before, metahumans, demons, angels, but these Inquisitors moved with a fluidity that spoke of years perfecting their craft. The way they used their environment, the precision of their movements, the coordination between them. These weren't thugs with weapons. These were apex predators. Good, he was tired of prey. The fifth brother landed on the rooftop with enough force to crack the ferrocrete beneath his feet. Up close, he was even more imposing, nearly 7 feet of muscle and scar tissue, yellow eyes blazing with dark side corruption, and a lightsaber that hummed with barely restrained violence. His presence radiated malice like heat from a furnace. "You," the Inquisitor rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, "have made yourself a problem for the Empire. The Emperor wishes to know what you are before we destroy you. Speak." Spawn's response was silence. He stood perfectly still, cape hanging motionless despite the wind that whipped across the rooftop. Only his eyes moved, tracking both Inquisitors as the seventh sister landed with feline grace to his left, creating a tactical pincer. The silent type, the seventh sister observed. Her Mirialan features bore geometric tattoos that seemed to writhe in the crimson glow of her lightsaber. How tedious. Very well, I'll simply rip the information from your mind. She extended her hand, and Spawn felt something invisible press against his consciousness, trying to burrow into his thoughts like parasitic worms. The symbiote reacted instantly. Spawn's entire body pulsed with necroplasmic energy, and the seventh sister gasped, stumbling backward as if she touched a live wire. Her nose began to bleed. "What?" she started, but the words died as she truly sensed what she tried to invade. Not a mind, but minds. Spawn's consciousness, yes, but also the symbiote's alien intelligence, and beneath that, something else. Echoes. Thousands of voices screaming in unison, the collective anguish of souls the symbiote had consumed over centuries. Hell's chorus, imprinted in his very being. "He's not alone in there," the seventh sister whispered, genuine fear creeping into her voice. "There are thousands of presences, tortured, damned. It's like staring into hell," Spawn finished for her. His voice carried across the rooftop like a death knell. "You wanted to know what I am. I'm what happens when a soldier dies, makes a deal with a demon, and comes back as an engine of vengeance. I'm a Hellspawn, and you Inquisitors, you hunters of the innocent, servants of tyranny, you're exactly the kind of evil I was designed to destroy." The fifth brother's answer was violence. He launched himself forward with force-enhanced speed, his crimson blade arcing towards Spawn's neck in a strike meant to decapitate. The attack was blindingly fast, propelled by dark side power and a lifetime of lightsaber mastery. Spawn's chains intercepted the blade inches from his throat. The impact sent sparks showering across the rooftop, as lightsaber plasma met living necroplasmic metal. The fifth brother's eyes widened in shock. His strike should have been unstoppable, backed by force-augmented strength that could cleave through durasteel. But the chains held firm, wrapping around his lightsaber and yanking it aside with contemptuous ease. "Impossible," the fifth brother snarled. "Nothing can." Spawn's fist, wreathed in necroplasmic energy, slammed into the Inquisitor's chest and sent him flying backward across the rooftop. The fifth brother crashed through a ventilation unit, his massive body tearing through metal like it was cloth. He rolled to his feet, but Spawn could see the surprise in his eyes. The Inquisitor had felt that impact. Through his dark sight-enhanced durability, through his years of conditioning, he'd felt genuine pain. The seventh sister attacked from behind, her spinning lightsaber becoming a disk of deadly energy as she used the force to hurl it at Spawn's back. The weapon should have bisected him at the waist. Instead, Spawn's cape suddenly expanded, spreading like demonic wings to create a shield of living darkness. The lightsaber struck the cape and simply stopped, suspended in the fabric as if caught in tar. The seventh sister's concentration shattered as she felt her weapon being pulled from her force grip, not by the force, but by something else, something hungry. The cape was feeding on her lightsaber's energy, absorbing the plasma and converting it into something the symbiote could process. Spawn's necroplasm counter ticked upward, 8,734. "You're not fighting with the Force," the seventh sister realized, recalling her weapon before the cape could consume it entirely. "You're using something else, something that treats the Force like food." "Fast learner," Spawn acknowledged. He began walking toward her, chains rattling with each step. "Your Force is just another energy source. My symbiote was built to consume souls, to feed on suffering and death. Here, It's learning to eat your dark side power. Every attack you throw at me just makes me stronger." The fifth brother rejoined his partner, and for the first time since the hunt began, both Inquisitors looked uncertain. They'd faced rogue Jedi, dark side adepts, even ancient Sith artifacts. But this being didn't play by any rules they understood. Their weapons couldn't cut him. Their force powers fed him. He fought like a brawler but moved like a trained soldier. "Together," the fifth brother commanded. Both Inquisitors raised their hands in unison, and Spawn felt the rooftop itself rebel against him. Debris, broken metal, chunks of ferrocrete, everything loose suddenly flew toward him in a telekinetic storm, each piece accelerated to lethal velocity by the Force. Spawn's cape expanded fully, wrapping around him in a cocoon of living darkness. The debris hammered against the shield like hail against armor, each impact absorbed and converted. Inside the protective shroud, Spawn felt his symbiote gorging itself on the dark side energy that powered the attack. The Inquisitors were literally feeding him with their assault. When the storm subsided, Spawn emerged with his necroplasm counter reading 8,891. He'd gained more than he'd spent defending himself. "Your mistake," Spawn said, his voice resonating with barely contained power, "was thinking I'd fight like your Jedi. They were probably trained in discipline, control, using only the minimum force necessary." His chains deployed fully, writhing around him like serpents made of darkness and rage. "I was a Marine. I was CIA. I was trained to overwhelm, to destroy, to leave nothing but corpses in my wake. And that was before I died and came back from hell." He moved. Not with force speed, but with the explosive velocity of a being who didn't feel pain, didn't tire, and whose symbiote augmented every movement with necroplasmic strength. Spawn closed the distance to the seventh sister in a heartbeat, chains lashing out in a pattern that military combat training and supernatural instinct had perfected over years. The seventh sister was skilled. Her lightsaber became a blur of defensive movements, deflecting chains with precision that spoke of thousands of hours of practice. But Spawn wasn't attacking randomly. Each chain strike forced her into specific positions, hurting her movement, limiting her options. It was a hunter's technique, a soldier's strategy. Control the battlefield, eliminate advantages, force the enemy into a killing box. The fifth brother tried to intervene, force-pushing Spawn from the side. But Spawn had anticipated it. His cape shot out, latching onto a communications tower and yanking him sideways. The force push hit empty air, and Spawn's counterattack came instantly. 3 chains wrapped around the fifth brother's arms and legs, pulling him off balance. "You rely too much on your force," Spawn growled, slamming the massive Inquisitor into the rooftop hard enough to crater the ferrocrete. "What happens when you fight something it doesn't affect?" The fifth brother's response was raw fury. He channeled the dark side directly, and force lightning erupted from his fingertips, violet blue energy that should have fried Spawn's nervous system and turned his internal organs to ash. The symbiote screamed with pleasure. The lightning hit Spawn's chest and didn't burn. It was absorbed, pulled into the living costume like water into a sponge. Spawn's necroplasm counter spiked dramatically, 9,247. The dark side energy, concentrated and pure, was a feast for his symbiote. "More," the symbiote whispered in Spawn's mind, its voice hungry and eager. "Let them attack. Let them feed us. We can become so strong here." Spawn gritted his teeth, fighting the symbiote's seductive whisper. This was the danger Kale had warned him about. The more dark side energy he consumed, the stronger the symbiote became. but also the harder it would be to control. He could feel it now, the edges of his consciousness blurring, the symbiote's hunger threatening to overwhelm his human will. The seventh sister saw his moment of internal struggle and exploited it. She used the Force to collapse the communications tower Spawn had used as an anchor, sending tons of metal crashing toward him. At the same moment, she hurled her spinning lightsaber again, this time aimed at his head. Military training saved him. Spawn dove aside, letting the tower collapse where he'd been standing. His chains intercepted the lightsaber mid-flight, but this time the seventh sister was ready. She used the Force to detonate the tower's power cell, and the resulting explosion consumed the rooftop in a fireball. Spawn felt the blast wash over him, felt his cape absorb the kinetic energy, but the heat and concussive force still drove him backward. He crashed through the rooftop's edge and fell, tumbling through 3 levels of abandoned residential space before his chains caught on a support beam and arrested his fall. His necroplasm counter read 8,923. The absorption had cost energy to process, and the fall had burned through his reserves. He was still positive, still gaining more than he lost, but the margin was tighter than he'd like. Above, he could hear the Inquisitors descending. They were being more cautious now, coordinating their attacks, probing for weaknesses. The initial shock of facing something that didn't fit their understanding had worn off. Now they were adapting, learning. Just like he was. Spawn pulled himself into a shadowed corner and assessed. The Inquisitors were powerful, but not invincible. The fifth brother relied on brute force and straightforward attacks, predictable once you knew the pattern. The seventh sister was cleverer, using misdirection and environmental manipulation, but she hesitated when things didn't go according to plan. They were dangerous individually. Together, they covered each other's weaknesses. He needed to separate them, take them down one at a time. He also needed to be careful about how much dark side energy he consumed. The symbiote's hunger was growing, its whispers more insistent. If he let it feast too freely, he might win the battle but lose himself in the process. He'd become the monster the Empire believed he was. "Come out, aberration," the fifth brother's voice echoed through the abandoned levels. "You cannot hide from the Force. We feel you, a void in the natural order. The Emperor will not tolerate your existence." "Lord Vader himself will come for you if we fail," the seventh sister added. "And trust me, you do not want to face the Dark Lord. He will break you in ways you cannot imagine." Spawn smiled in the darkness. Let them threaten. Let them posture. They were servants of a tyrannical empire, hunters who'd murdered innocents, dark side users who traded their souls for power. They might not understand what he was, might not comprehend hell or damnation or resurrection, but they understood what he represented. A threat to their order, a wild card in their galaxy, something that didn't bow to their Force or fear their empire. Spawn's chains coiled around his arms, ready for the next round. His cape spread across the walls like living shadow, expanding his senses through the building. He could feel the Inquisitors moving through the levels above, systematically searching. They were maybe 2 floors away now. "I've got a message for your Emperor," Spawn called out, his voice carrying through the abandoned structure. "And for your Lord Vader. Tell them that hell already tried to control me, already tried to make me a weapon. I broke free once. I'll do it again. And anyone who serves tyranny, who hunts the innocent, who rules through fear, I'm coming for them eventually." The response was immediate. Both Inquisitors dropped through the floor above, lightsabers ignited, landing on either side of Spawn's position in a coordinated strike. They triangulated his position through his voice, used the Force to map the building's structure, and executed a perfect pincer attack. But Spawn had been counting on that. He'd positioned himself near a structural weak point, a support column already damaged by the building's general decay. The moment both Inquisitors landed, Spawn's chains lashed out not at them, but at the column. The support shattered. The entire floor gave way. All three combatants fell through into the level below, crashing through rotted furniture and corroded machinery. Spawn used his cape to control his descent, while the Inquisitors relied on the Force to cushion their falls. They landed in what had once been a residential apartment, long since abandoned. Personal belongings lay scattered and forgotten. Toys, clothing, family jalapenos frozen in happier times before the Empire's rule made this level uninhabitable. Evidence of lives displaced, of innocents forced to flee their homes by Imperial neglect and oppression. Spawn's eyes blazed brighter as he took in the scene. This is what your Empire creates: suffering, displacement, fear. You enforce this. You hunt anyone who resists it. We enforce order, the fifth brother said, but there was something defensive in his tone. The galaxy needs strength, needs purpose. The weak Republic fell because it was corrupt, inefficient. Save your propaganda, Spawn cut him off. I've heard it before. Every fascist regime thinks they're bringing order. Every tyrant believes they're making things better. But in the end, you're all the same, powerful people crushing the powerless because you can. The Seventh Sister's expression hardened. You know nothing of what we've sacrificed, what we've endured. The Jedi were blind, the Republic was dying, and we chose to survive. We chose power over extinction. You chose to become the monsters you once fought, Spawn corrected. And now I'm what stands between you and your next victim. The Seventh Sister's patience snapped. She unleashed a Force scream, a dark side power that manifested as a sonic shockwave, meant to disorient and paralyze enemies through pure psychic assault. The attack was devastating at close range, capable of shattering minds and rupturing organs. Spawn's symbiote absorbed the scream's energy like a sponge. His necroplasm counter jumped, 9,134, but there was a cost. He could feel the symbiote growing stronger, more assertive, its whispers becoming commands. Feed us more. Let us consume them completely. We can take their power, add it to ours. No, Spawn said aloud, speaking to both his symbiote and the Inquisitors. I'm not you. I don't consume everything in my path just because I can. Then you'll die weak and principled, the fifth brother declared, raising his lightsaber for what he intended to be a finishing strike. But before he could attack, the building shook, not from their battle, but from something else. Something massive had just landed on the rooftop several levels above, something that made both Inquisitors suddenly look up with expressions that mixed confusion and fear. Through the Force, they felt it, a presence so steeped in darkness that it made their own connection to the dark side seem like a candle beside a sun, a presence that commanded respect and terror in equal measure. Darth Vader had arrived. The fifth brother and seventh sister immediately backed away from Spawn, assuming defensive positions but no longer attacking. The hunt had just been superseded by a higher authority. The Dark Lord is here, the seventh sister whispered. But why, we haven't called for. Heavy footsteps echoed through the building, descending level by level with mechanical precision. Each footstep was accompanied by a sound that made the abandoned apartment feel even more like a tomb. Mechanical breathing, rhythmic and terrible, like death's own metronome. Spawn felt it too, not through the Force, but through his symbiote's sensitivity to predators. Whatever was coming carried a darkness that rivaled his own, a malevolence born not from hell but from tragedy, suffering, and choice. The symbiote actually retreated slightly, pulling tighter around Spawn's body in an instinctive defensive posture. The footsteps stopped. A presence appeared in the doorway, a towering figure in black armor, cape flowing despite the still air, a breath mask that turned every respiration into a declaration of menace. Red lightsaber ignited, bathing the apartment in crimson light. Darth Vader had entered the battlefield. Inquisitors, Vader's voice emerged through his mask, deep and resonant with barely contained rage. You have failed to contain this aberration. Stand aside. I will handle this personally. The fifth brother and seventh sister obeyed immediately, moving to the apartment's edges. They were hunters, skilled and dangerous. But in Vader's presence, they became spectators, understanding that they existed on an entirely different level of power. Vader's masked gaze fixed on Spawn, and even through the dark lenses, Spawn could feel the weight of that stare. This wasn't just a dark side user. This was something more. A man who'd fallen so far into darkness that he'd become its avatar. You, Vader said, his lightsaber held in a guard position that spoke of absolute mastery, are an anomaly. You do not belong in this galaxy. Explain your presence or be destroyed. Spawn's chains coiled around his arms, ready for battle. His cape spread wide, shadows gathering in its folds. His eyes blazed like twin stars of defiance. I'm Spawn, he said simply, and I don't answer to Sith Lords. Vader's response was a subtle shift in stance, a tightening of his grip on his lightsaber. In the language of warriors, it was clear communication. So be it. The real fight was about to begin. The apartment fell silent except for Darth Vader's mechanical breathing. The sound filled the space like a countdown to violence, each inhalation and exhalation marking time before the inevitable clash. Spawn had faced powerful enemies before, demons who commanded legions, angels wielding divine fire, metahumans with reality-warping abilities. But something about Vader was different. The Dark Lord radiated an aura of absolute conviction, of a soul so thoroughly broken and reforged in darkness that nothing remained of whatever he'd been before. Through his symbiote's enhanced senses, Spawn could perceive details the Inquisitors likely missed. Vader's armor wasn't just protective, it was a life support system. Beneath the black durasteel and imposing helmet, the man was more machine than flesh, sustained by technology and dark side power. Every breath through the respirator was a reminder of some terrible injury, some catastrophic event that should have killed him, but instead transformed him into this. Your costume is alive, Vader observed, his masked gaze fixed on the way Spawn's cape moved with subtle organic motion. A symbiotic entity parasitic in nature, it feeds on death and suffering. I can sense its hunger even now, feel how it consumes the dark side energy that surrounds us. He took a single step forward. You are a wound in the Force, an aberration that should not exist, yet you wield power that rivals even the most skilled Sith. Curious. You talk a lot for someone about to fight, Spawn said. His chains rattled softly, eager for violence. I do not fight, Vader corrected. I eliminate threats to the Empire's order. There is a difference. His lightsaber shifted slightly, the crimson blade humming with barely restrained power. The Emperor is curious about you. He senses something in your presence, an opportunity perhaps, or a threat that must be erased. He has commanded that I determine which. I'm not interested in your Emperor's curiosity. What you are interested in is irrelevant. Vader's voice carried absolute authority. "You have three choices. Submit and serve the Empire, flee this galaxy and never return, or die here in this forgotten building on this insignificant moon. Choose." Spawn's response was to deploy his chains fully. They erupted from his body like striking serpents, each one moving independently with supernatural precision. 6 chains in total, each wreathed in necroplasmic energy, lashing toward Vader from multiple angles simultaneously. Vader didn't move. He simply raised his free hand. The Force seized all 6 chains mid-strike, holding them motionless in the air as if they'd been frozen in carbonite. Spawn felt the resistance through his connection to the chains, not just telekinetic pressure, but something more. Vader was using the Force to analyze the chains, understand their composition, identify weaknesses in their structure. "Interesting," Vader murmured. "Not metal, not organic tissue, something between, a fusion of dark energy and matter given form. Your chains are extensions of your will, animated by the same parasitic entity that comprises your costume." He clenched his fist, and the Force pressure intensified. Everything that exists can be broken. The chains began to crack. Hairline fractures appeared along their length, spreading like frost across glass. Spawn felt pain through his connection to the symbiote, not physical pain, but something deeper. Vader was attacking the fundamental structure of his necroplasmic constructs, unmaking them through sheer dark side mastery. Spawn released the chains, letting them dissolve back into his body before Vader could shatter them completely. The Dark Lord's power was unlike anything he'd encountered. The Inquisitors had been skilled, dangerous even, but Vader operated on an entirely different level. His understanding of the Force was so complete that he could weaponize it in ways that transcended simple telekinesis or energy projection. "You learn quickly," Vader acknowledged. "Good, perhaps you are worth studying after all." Vader moved. For something so large and mechanical, the Dark Lord was impossibly fast. He crossed the apartment in a blur, his lightsaber descending in a strike that would have bisected Spawn from shoulder to hip. The attack was perfect. No wasted motion, no telegraphed intention, just lethal efficiency honed through decades of combat. Spawn's cape expanded to intercept, spreading wide to create a shield of living darkness. The lightsaber struck the cape and, unlike when it had absorbed the Inquisitor's attacks, this time the blade began to cut through. Slowly, but definitely. Vader's mastery allowed him to pour focused dark side power directly into his weapon, overwhelming the symbiote's absorption capacity. Spawn twisted away, his marine combat training screaming warnings. He couldn't tank Vader's attacks the way he had with the Inquisitors. This enemy adapted too quickly, learned too fast, and wielded power with surgical precision. "Your symbiote feeds on dark side energy," Vader said, continuing his assault with a series of strikes that forced Spawn into purely defensive maneuvers. But raw consumption is inefficient. The dark side is not merely fuel, it is a tool, a weapon, a path to power that requires understanding and discipline. Your parasite consumes without comprehension. That is its weakness. Each strike came faster than the last, Vader's lightsaber becoming a blur of crimson death. Spawn's chains and cape deflected what they could, but he was being driven backward, toward the apartment's far wall. Vader was hurting him, controlling his movement with the same tactical precision Spawn himself had used against the Inquisitors. Spawn feinted left, then dove right, using a window to escape to the building's exterior. He fell 3 stories before his cape arrested his descent, spreading wide to catch the polluted air. For a moment, he thought he'd gained distance. Then Vader simply stepped through the wall. Not smashed through it, stepped through. The duracrete and metal simply parted around him as Vader used the Force to manipulate matter itself, creating a temporary passage that sealed shut once he'd crossed. The Dark Lord stood on the building's exterior face as if gravity were optional, his cape billowing in the wind while he remained perfectly stable. "You cannot flee," Vader stated. "The Force binds all things. Distance is meaningless." He thrust his hand forward, and Spawn felt an invisible grip seize his throat. The Force choke, a technique Vader had perfected to the point of artistry. Spawn clawed at his neck reflexively, feeling his airway compress despite the symbiote's protection. The pressure wasn't just physical, it was attacking him on multiple levels simultaneously, crushing his windpipe while also assaulting his nervous system with dark side energy. The symbiote screamed and began feeding on the dark side power in the Force choke, converting Vader's attack into necroplasmic fuel. Spawn's counter ticked upward, 9,347. But the conversion wasn't fast enough. Vader was pouring power into the choke faster than the symbiote could process it. Spawn's vision began to tunnel. His dead lungs didn't need air the way a living person's would, but the Force choke was doing more than preventing breathing. It was interrupting the connection between his consciousness and the symbiote, threatening to shut down the hybrid existence that kept Simmons anchored in his resurrected form. In desperation, Spawn teleported. He'd avoided using the ability because it was expensive. Shadow stepping cost significant necroplasm, especially in this universe where Hell's dimensional pathways didn't exist. But with Vader's Force choke threatening to tear his consciousness apart, he had no choice. Spawn dissolved into shadow and reformed 50 feet away on an adjacent building's rooftop. His necroplasm counter plummeted, 8,921. Vader turned to face him, still standing on the vertical surface as if it were horizontal. "So, you possess dimensional manipulation abilities as well. Impressive, but inefficient. You burned a significant portion of your reserves to escape my grasp. At this rate, you'll exhaust yourself long before I tire." The Dark Lord was right. Spawn could feel the truth of it. His necroplasm was depleting faster than he could regenerate it, and while feeding on the Inquisitor's attacks had helped, Vader's precision meant less wasted energy for the symbiote to absorb. The Dark Lord's attacks were too focused, too pure. They accomplished their purpose before the symbiote could fully convert them. "I've fought beings more powerful than you," Spawn said, his voice hoarse from the Force choke. "Malbolgia, the demon lord who created me. The Violator, a demon prince with millennia of combat experience. Angels wielding divine fire. Your Force tricks don't impress me." "I do not seek to impress," Vader replied. He leaped from the vertical surface, using the Force to guide his trajectory directly toward Spawn. "I seek to understand you, and through understanding to defeat you." They clashed on the rooftop, lightsaber meeting necroplasmic chains in a shower of sparks and dark energy. Vader's technique was flawless, each strike economical, each defensive movement minimal. He fought like a machine programmed for perfect efficiency, and in a way, that's exactly what he was. A man so broken that only the machine parts kept him functioning, so consumed by darkness that only his armor prevented complete dissolution. Spawn fought with the brutal directness of military training enhanced by supernatural power. He didn't have Vader's technique, but he had something else, unpredictability born from fighting in alleys and rooftops rather than formal dueling grounds. He used the environment aggressively, tearing up chunks of the roof with his chains, and hurling them at Vader while simultaneously attacking from multiple angles. Vader deflected the debris with casual force pushes while parrying Spawn's chains with his lightsaber. "Your tactics are sound," the Dark Lord observed, almost conversationally. "Military training, special operations. You were a soldier in your previous existence." "Marine Force Recon," Spawn confirmed, seeing no reason to hide it. "CIA after that. Black Ops, wet work, the missions that officially never happened." "Then you understand duty, sacrifice, the willingness to serve a greater purpose even when it costs you everything." Vader's strikes intensified. "The Jedi believed in peace and justice. I once believed as they did, but I learned that true peace requires strength. True justice requires the courage to do what is necessary, regardless of cost." "That's what they all say," Spawn growled, deflecting a lightsaber strike that would have removed his arm. "Every tyrant thinks they're making the hard choices. Every dictator believes they're saving people from themselves. And every idealist believes they alone possess moral clarity," Vader countered. "Tell me, soldier, how many have you killed in pursuit of your justice? How many souls has your symbiote consumed? You speak of righteousness, yet you are quite literally forged from hell itself. What makes your darkness more acceptable than mine?" The question hit harder than any physical blow. It was the question Spawn asked himself every time he used his powers, every time the symbiote's hunger grew stronger. What separated him from the monsters he fought? Intent, conscience, the fact that he hated what he'd become. "I don't serve an empire built on fear," Spawn said finally. "I don't hunt peacekeepers or enforce tyranny. I protect the innocent, even if it damns me further." "The innocent?" Vader's voice carried a note of bitter amusement. "Tell me, who are the innocent in a galaxy of trillions? The rebel terrorists who sabotage Imperial facilities, killing workers who are simply doing their jobs. The smugglers who traffic in weapons and spice. The senators who plot in shadows while pretending to support order." He paused, his lightsaber humming between them. "Or perhaps you mean the children. The younglings in the Jedi Temple who I cut down, because they represented a future threat to galactic stability." Spawn froze. "You killed children." "I killed Jedi," Vader corrected, but there was something in his voice, a hairline crack in the otherwise perfect certainty. "The Jedi Order was corrupt, blind to the darkness festering within the Republic. They trained children to become weapons, indoctrinated them with a philosophy that denied fundamental aspects of being alive. I ended that cycle by murdering them." Spawn's eyes blazed brighter and his chains coiled tighter. "You killed children and call it justice." "I did what was necessary." "No," Spawn's voice cut through Vader's rationalization like a blade. "There's no justifying that. No greater good that makes child murder acceptable. You didn't do what was necessary. You did what you were told because you were too weak, too broken, or too corrupted to refuse." For the first time since Vader arrived, the Dark Lord's perfect control slipped. The force around them suddenly intensified, pressure building like a physical weight. Debris on the rooftop began to shake. Nearby windows cracked. The very air seemed to constrict. "You dare!" Vader's voice had gone cold. All conversational tone vanished. "Speak to me of weakness." The force erupted from Vader in a telekinetic shockwave that should have pulverized Spawn into paste. The attack carried the full weight of Vader's rage, his self-loathing, his bottomless well of dark side power. It was meant to end the fight decisively. Spawn's symbiote absorbed the attack like a sponge drinking water. The necroplasm counter exploded upward. 9,756. Vader's emotional outburst. His loss of control had flooded the attack with pure dark side energy, exactly the kind of unfocused power the symbiote fed on most efficiently. The more rage, the more hatred, the more emotional weight behind an attack, the more sustenance it provided. "Yes," Spawn said, standing unharmed amid the devastation Vader's attack had wrought on the surrounding rooftop. "I dare speak to you of weakness, because I recognize it. I was weak once, weak enough to make a deal with a demon because I couldn't accept death, weak enough to believe I could control Hell's power without it controlling me. But at least I admit what I am. You hide behind duty and necessity while serving a master who's using you as a weapon against the very people you once swore to protect." Vader stood motionless, his mechanical breathing the only sound. Behind his mask, impossible to read, some calculation was occurring. When he spoke again, his voice had returned to its controlled, measured tone, but something had fundamentally shifted. "You are more formidable than anticipated," Vader admitted. "My attacks feed your power, emotional outbursts strengthen you, physical strikes are absorbed by your symbiote. You are designed to fight dark side users, perhaps not intentionally, but the result is the same." He deactivated his lightsaber. "I could continue this battle. Eventually, I would find your weakness and exploit it, but the cost would be significant." "So you're retreating?" "I am adapting." Vader's masked gaze remained fixed on Spawn. "The Emperor will be informed of your capabilities. A more comprehensive strategy will be developed. Inquisitors," he called to the fifth brother and seventh sister, who'd been watching from the building below, "withdraw. This target requires different tactics." The Inquisitors emerged onto the rooftop, both looking confused but unwilling to question Vader's command. They deactivated their lightsabers and moved toward the edge of the building where their shuttle waited. But Vader remained, facing Spawn for a moment longer. "A question before I leave. Your symbiote consumes dark side energy, grows stronger from hatred and suffering. The Empire generates both in abundance. Every world we conquer, every rebellion we crush, every act of control and fear, all of it feeds the dark side. If you remain in this galaxy, if you continue to fight us, you will grow exponentially more powerful. Does that not concern you?" Spawn met the Dark Lord's masked gaze. "Every day I worry about becoming the monster Hell designed me to be. Every time I use my powers, I risk losing myself to the symbiote's hunger. But the alternative is standing aside while tyrants like you crush the innocent. So yeah, it concerns me, but I'll deal with it." "Admirable." Vader turned to leave, his cape billowing as he moved toward the shuttle. "But misguided. The dark side is not something you deal with. It is something that consumes you, slowly and inevitably. By the time you realize how far you've fallen, there is no path back." He paused at the rooftop's edge. "I know this because I walked that path myself. There is no redemption from darkness this complete." Then Darth Vader was gone, boarding the shuttle with the Inquisitors. The craft lifted off, its engine screaming as it accelerated away from Nar Shaddaa. Spawn stood alone on the devastated rooftop, watching the shuttle disappear into the traffic patterns. His necroplasm counter read 9,756, higher than when the fight started, but the cost had been more than just energy expenditure. Vader's words echoed in his mind, carrying the weight of terrible experience. There is no redemption from darkness this complete. Was Vader right? Was Spawn doomed to fall completely, to become an avatar of the dark side in this galaxy just as he'd been Hell's reluctant soldier in his own? The symbiote pulsed against his skin, stronger now, more assertive. He could feel its hunger, its desire to seek out more dark side energy, to grow stronger, to consume everything in its path. "Al," a voice called from below. Kale emerged from the building's lower levels, lightsaber deactivated but held ready. We felt the disturbance. Vader was here. I can still sense his presence in the Force. "Are you?" He stopped, seeing Spawn's condition. "You're stronger, more saturated with dark side energy. What happened?" "I fed," Spawn said simply. "On Vader's attacks, on his rage. The symbiote consumed it all." Kale's expression grew troubled. "And how do you feel? Is the hunger stronger? Is it harder to control?" Spawn was silent for a long moment, then, honest despite himself, "Yes." "Then we need to leave Nar Shaddaa," Kale said urgently. "Now, before you're too corrupted to." "I'm not running," Spawn interrupted. "Vader retreated this time, but he'll be back with a strategy. The Empire knows I'm here now, knows what I can do. Running just means the next fight happens on their terms." "So what do you propose?" Spawn looked out across Nar Shaddaa's neon-drenched vertical cityscape. Somewhere out there, millions of beings lived under Imperial oppression. Suffering generated by tyranny, fear weaponized into policy. The dark side energy the symbiote craved existed in abundance because the Empire created it deliberately. Vader had been right about one thing. Staying in this galaxy would make Spawn more powerful, but it would also test him in ways he'd never been tested before. Could he feed on darkness without becoming consumed by it? Could he fight an empire without becoming the monster they believed he was? "I propose," Spawn said slowly, "that we make the Empire regret ever sending their hunters after me. They want to study me, understand me, eliminate me. Fine. Let's see how they handle a Hellspawn who's decided their empire is the enemy." Kale looked uncertain, but something in Spawn's defiance sparked hope in the young former Jedi's eyes. "The rebellion could use someone like you. Someone who can stand against Vader, who can fight without the Force being a limiting factor." "I don't join organizations," Spawn said, "but I'll fight the Empire. On my terms, my way. Anyone who hurts innocents in the name of order becomes my target." Behind them, Jace Kellen emerged from the building, datapad in hand. "Well, if you're planning a war against the Empire, I've got intel on their operations across this sector. Weapons shipments, garrison locations, black sites where they interrogate political prisoners." He grinned. "Plenty of targets to choose from." Spawn turned to face both of them, the former Jedi who'd survived genocide, and the smuggler who'd risked everything to bring them together. They looked at him not with fear, but with something that might have been hope. The desperate, fragile hope of people who'd fought an overwhelming enemy for so long that any new ally seemed like a gift. He should walk away, should find a way back to his own universe, back to his own war. But Vader's words haunted him. "What makes your darkness more acceptable than mine?" Maybe the answer wasn't about whose darkness was more acceptable. Maybe it was about what you did with that darkness, whether you used it to crush the weak or protect them. "All right," Spawn said finally. "Show me these targets. Let's see if the Empire bleeds." Across the galaxy, in the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine sat alone in his meditation chamber. Through the Force, he'd observed the entire confrontation on Nar Shaddaa, Vader's retreat, the aberration's power, the threat or opportunity it represented. "Interesting," the Emperor whispered to the darkness. "A being from beyond our reality, touched by powers even older than the Sith. Let us see how this plays out. Let us see if this, Spawn, is a weapon to be wielded or an obstacle to be destroyed." He smiled, yellow eyes glowing with dark side corruption. "Either way, the dark side grows stronger, and that serves my purpose perfectly." The rebel safe house on Nar Shaddaa's mid-levels was a testament to desperation and ingenuity in equal measure. Hidden behind the facade of a defunct droid repair shop, the narrow space had been converted into a makeshift command center. Holographic displays flickered with Imperial patrol routes, outdated star charts, and intelligence reports scraped together from a dozen sources. The air smelled of recycled atmosphere, cheap calf, and the particular tension that came from living in constant fear of discovery. Spawn stood before the largest display, studying Imperial positions across the sector with the practiced eye of a military strategist. Kale and Jace had gathered additional rebel contacts, a Twi'lek slicer named Nira who specialized in breaking Imperial encryptions, a former Imperial engineer named Darren who defected after witnessing an orbital bombardment of his homeworld, and a Mandalorian weapons specialist who went simply by Cross and asked no questions as long as credits flowed. They'd spent the past 6 hours planning, not a single strike but a campaign. Spawn had learned long ago that fighting powerful enemies required more than raw power. It required strategy, intelligence, and the willingness to think 3 moves ahead. "This facility," Spawn said, pointing to a warehouse complex on the moon's industrial level, "is where the Empire stores confiscated weapons before they're destroyed or redistributed to garrison forces. Security is moderate, 24 stormtroopers, automated defenses, regular patrol checks every 4 hours. We've considered hitting it before," Kale said, "but the response time is too fast. Imperial reinforcements would arrive within minutes. Anyone inside would be trapped." "Not if they're not coming to reinforce," Spawn countered. He gestured to another location on the holographic map, a communications hub 3 sectors away. "We hit the comm hub first, take out their coordination. Then, while they're blind and scrambling, we hit the weapons depot. By the time they restore communications and mount a proper response, we're gone with enough weapons to arm every rebel cell in the sector." Nira, the Twi'lek slicer, studied the plan with her leku twitching, a sign of excitement. "It could work. The comm hub security is mostly electronic. I can slice through their systems if someone gets me physical access to their primary node. But the hub is inside an Imperial administrative building. Lots of personnel, lots of eyes." "I'll handle the hub," Spawn said. "You get me to the primary node, I'll make sure no one interferes." "That's insane," Darren protested. The former Imperial engineer still wore the haunted expression of someone who'd seen his former employer's true face. "The building has hundreds of Imperial staff, security personnel, officers, administrative workers. You can't just—" "I can," Spawn interrupted. His voice carried absolute certainty. "And I will. The Empire rules through fear. Time to show them what real fear looks like." Cross, the Mandalorian, tilted his helmeted head thoughtfully. "Your armor, it's not Beskar, but it's stronger than anything I've seen. And those chains," he paused. "I watched security footage from your fight with the Inquisitors. You move like a Spec Force operative, hit like a demolition charge, and your weapons are alive. I've fought alongside Jedi, hunted dark side cultists, seen things most beings wouldn't believe. But you're something else entirely." "I'm what happens when hell runs out of patience," Spawn said. "And right now, I'm what the Empire is going to learn to fear." The plan was refined over the next hour. Timing was crucial. The comm hub assault had to be fast enough that the weapons depot team could move before Imperial forces adapted. Spawn would lead the hub assault with Nira providing technical support. Kale, Jace, and Cross would hit the weapons depot with a small team of rebel volunteers. Darren would coordinate from the safe house, monitoring Imperial communications and providing real-time intelligence. As they finalized details, Spawn felt his necroplasm counter in the back of his consciousness, 9,512. His reserves had stabilized after the fight with Vader, the symbiote having processed and integrated the dark side energy it had consumed. But something else had changed too. The symbiote was different now, more aware, more aggressive in its whispers. "This galaxy is perfect for us," it murmured in his mind. "So much suffering, so much fear. We could become more powerful here than we ever were on Earth. Why limit ourselves? Why hold back?" Spawn pushed the whispers down, maintaining the iron control that had kept him sane since his resurrection. But it was getting harder. The symbiote had tasted this universe's unique brand of darkness, the dark side of the Force, and found it intoxicating. "Al," Kale's voice cut through his internal struggle. The former Jedi stood close, speaking quietly so the others wouldn't hear. "I can sense it. The dark side energy you absorbed from Vader, it's changing your connection to the Force. You're becoming more visible, more present. Every Force sensitive in this sector will be able to feel you soon if this continues." "Can't help what I am," Spawn said. "I know, but you can help what you become." Kale's hand moved to his lightsaber unconsciously. "The dark side is like an addiction. The more you use it, the more you need it. And this galaxy has an infinite supply. Promise me something. If you feel yourself losing control, if the symbiote starts winning, tell me. Let me help before it's too late." Spawn met the young Jedi's eyes. There was genuine concern there, mixed with the kind of understanding that only came from seeing others fall to darkness. "You'd fight me if it came to that. Try to stop me." "I try to save you," Kale corrected. "There's a difference. The Jedi forgot that once they saw darkness as something to be destroyed rather than redeemed. That's part of why they fell. I won't make that mistake." Before Spawn could respond, Nira called out from the holo display. "We've got a problem. Imperial security just upgraded their alert status across the sector. They're doubling patrols, implementing random checkpoint searches, and..." She paled, her leku going rigid. "They're broadcasting a priority target description. It matches you, Spawn. They're calling you a dark side aberration and offering 100,000 credits for information leading to your capture." Jace whistled low. "That's serious money. Half the bounty hunters in the sector will be looking for you." "Let them look," Spawn said. "They'll regret finding me." "This changes the timeline," Kale said urgently. "If the Empire's on high alert, our window for hitting the comm hub and weapons depot just got a lot narrower. We move tonight, or we don't move at all." Spawn checked his internal chronometer. The symbiote provided that service automatically, along with dozens of other tactical readouts. Local time was 1847 hours. Full darkness would fall in approximately 3 hours. We move at 2200 hours. That gives everyone time to prep, get into position, and hit during shift change when security is most distracted. The rebels dispersed to prepare, each moving with the efficient tension of people who'd learned to live on the edge of survival. Only Spawn remained before the holo display, studying the Imperial comm hub's layout one more time. The building was a tower, 20 stories of Imperial bureaucracy and military coordination. The primary communication node would be on the 15th floor, heavily secured but accessible through the building's maintenance systems. Getting in would be easy. Getting out alive would be the challenge. Spawn's chains stirred beneath his cape, sensing his anticipation for combat. The symbiote pulsed with dark hunger, eager to feed again. Since arriving in this galaxy, Spawn had been operating defensively, reacting to threats, surviving attacks, learning the rules of this universe. Tonight would be different. Tonight he was taking the fight to the Empire. And the Empire was about to learn what happened when you hunted something from hell. At 2200 hours exactly, Spawn and Nira approached the Imperial Communications Hub through Nar Shaddaa's labyrinthine maintenance tunnels. The Twi'lek moved with practiced ease through the cramped passages, her natural agility allowing her to navigate obstacles that would have stopped humans. Spawn simply tore through anything in his path, his necroplasmic strength rendering barriers meaningless. "You're not subtle," Nira muttered as Spawn ripped a locked maintenance hatch off its hinges. "Subtlety is for people who can't afford to be noticed," Spawn replied. "I want them to notice. I want them to remember." They emerged in a sub-basement 2 levels below the comm hub's main structure. Security was lighter here, mostly automated sensors and the occasional patrol droid. Nira handled the electronics with her datapad, slicing through Imperial encryptions with the ease of someone who'd been doing this for years. Spawn handled the physical obstacles, his chains making short work of locked doors and reinforced barriers. The building's interior was sterile, all Imperial efficiency and cold functionality. White walls, gray floors, harsh lighting that eliminated shadows, or at least it tried to. Spawn's presence seemed to generate shadows that shouldn't exist, darkness pooling around his feet like liquid despite the aggressive illumination. They reached the elevator shaft that would take them to the 15th floor. Nira started slicing the controls, but Spawn had a faster method. His chains shot upward, wrapping around support beams, and he began climbing with his cape wrapped around Nira to carry her along. "Warning," Nira gasped as they ascended. "There are." Security droids appeared at multiple levels, emerging from hidden compartments in the shaft walls. KX-series security models, each armed with integrated blasters and programmed for lethal response. They opened fire simultaneously, dozens of blaster bolts streaking toward Spawn and Nira in a coordinated attack. Spawn's cape expanded, creating a shield of living darkness that absorbed the energy blasts. His necroplasm counter ticked upward slightly with each absorbed shot. The weapons were powered by energy cells, and while not dark side force, the symbiote could still process the raw power. Meanwhile, his chains lashed out, tearing through droids with brutal efficiency. Sparks and shattered durasteel rained down the elevator shaft. They reached the 15th floor in under 90 seconds. The doors opened to reveal a long corridor lined with offices and secure data centers. At the far end, Spawn could see the reinforced entrance to the primary communications node, a vault-like door with biometric locks and probably enough security protocols to stop a company of soldiers. Unfortunately for the Empire, Spawn wasn't a company of soldiers. He was something much worse. Alarms began wailing as the destroyed security droids triggered automated alerts. Blast doors started descending across the corridor, attempting to seal them in. Stormtroopers would be converging on this location within minutes. "I need 3 minutes at the node," Nira said, already running toward the secured entrance. "Can you buy me that?" "I can buy you an hour if you need it," Spawn replied. He walked to the center of the corridor as blast doors sealed behind and ahead of them, creating a killing box. Standard Imperial tactics: trap the intruder, then eliminate them with overwhelming force. Through his enhanced hearing, Spawn could detect boots on metal, the clicking of weapons being primed, the harsh breathing of soldiers preparing for combat. The stormtroopers came from both ends simultaneously, 20 from the south, 20 from the north, with more reinforcements staging in adjacent rooms. They opened fire with coordinated discipline, bolts of red energy converging on Spawn's position in a devastating crossfire. Spawn's cape exploded outward, expanding to fill the entire corridor. The living fabric absorbed the blaster fire while simultaneously attacking, tendrils of darkness lashing out to grab weapons, wrap around legs, pull stormtroopers into the cape's shadowy embrace. Screams echoed through the corridor as soldiers disappeared into the living darkness, their life force drained by the symbiote's hunger. Spawn's necroplasm counter jumped, 9,847. The troopers weren't force-sensitive, but they were alive, and the symbiote could feed on life energy when necessary. It wasn't as efficient as dark side power, wasn't as satisfying to the symbiote's hunger, but it was sustenance. More, the symbiote whispered eagerly. So many more nearby. Let us consume them all. Let us grow strong. No, Spawn said aloud, reining in the symbiote's hunger. He pulled his cape back, releasing the stormtroopers, alive but unconscious, drained just enough to incapacitate without killing. I'm not a murderer. These are just soldiers following orders. But they serve evil, the symbiote argued. They enforce tyranny. They would kill you without hesitation. Doesn't matter, Spawn insisted. I don't kill unless I have to. But even as he spoke, he felt the rationalization forming. These troopers were part of an imperial machine that crushed innocence. They might be following orders, but those orders resulted in oppression and suffering. Wasn't leaving them alive just allowing the Empire to deploy them again tomorrow. Wasn't mercy toward the Empire's soldiers' cruelty toward its victims. The thoughts weren't entirely his own. The symbiote was learning to argue, to seduce, to corrupt with logic rather than just hunger. Behind him, Nira worked furiously at the communications node. Her fingers danced across the interface, slicing through security protocols with elegant precision. I'm in, she called out, downloading their communication protocols and, got it, transmitting shutdown codes now. The entire sector comm network is going dark in 3, 2, 1. Throughout the building, every holographic display, every comlink, every data terminal simultaneously went offline. The Imperial communications network collapsed like a house of cards, leaving hundreds of facilities across the sector blind and unable to coordinate. It's done, Nira said, pulling her datapad free. But we've triggered every security measure in the building. They'll be. The wall exploded inward. Not from conventional weapons, but from the Force itself. Through the shattered duracrete, a figure stepped into the corridor, the fifth brother. His massive frame filling the breach, yellow eyes blazing with rage. His crimson lightsaber ignited with a snap hiss that somehow cut through the wailing alarms. The aberration returns, the Inquisitor rumbled. Lord Vader ordered us to observe, to learn your patterns. We've been watching your rebel contacts, waiting for you to surface. He smiled without humor. Thank you for making this easy. Behind him, the seventh sister appeared, her own lightsaber spinning in that distinctive disc formation. The communications blackout was clever, but you've trapped yourself here. There's no escape. Spawn stepped forward, chains coiling around his arms. Who said I'm trying to escape? The fifth brother charged, his massive strength augmented by the Force. His lightsaber came down in an overhead strike meant to cleave Spawn in two. But Spawn had fought these Inquisitors before, learned their patterns, understood their tactics. He sidestepped the strike with military precision and countered with a chain that wrapped around the fifth brother's wrist. The Inquisitor tried to use the Force to break free, but Spawn was ready. He channeled necroplasmic energy through the chain, and the symbiote, having learned from their previous encounter, actively countered the Force manipulation. The chain held firm, yanking the fifth brother off balance. The seventh sister attacked from behind, her spinning lightsaber becoming a blur of red death. But Nira, brave despite her terror, threw a thermal detonator she'd been carrying for emergencies. The explosion wasn't large enough to hurt the Inquisitor, but it disrupted her concentration, causing her spinning lightsaber to wobble mid-flight. That wobble was all Spawn needed. His cape lashed out, wrapping around the seventh sister's legs and pulling her down. Before she could recover, Spawn was on her, chains pinning her to the floor while his hand wrapped around her throat. Not to kill, to feed. The symbiote surged forward, drawn by the concentrated dark side energy within the Inquisitor. It began draining her power, consuming the corruption that had transformed her from Jedi to dark side hunter. The seventh sister screamed, not in physical pain, but in existential horror as she felt her connection to the dark side being ripped away. Spawn's necroplasm counter exploded upward, 10,234. The sensation was intoxicating. Pure dark side power, concentrated by years of training and corruption, flowing directly into the symbiote. It was so much more efficient than ambient energy, so much more satisfying. The symbiote sang with pleasure, and Spawn felt his control slipping as the rush of power threatened to overwhelm his human consciousness. Yes, the symbiote exulted. This is what we need. Not scraps and mercy, but pure consumption. Take her power, make it ours, become what we were meant to be. No, Spawn released the seventh sister, throwing himself backward. The Inquisitor collapsed, gasping, her connection to the dark side weakened but not broken. Spawn could feel the symbiote's rage at being denied, feel it fighting his control. The fifth brother seized the opportunity, bringing his full force power to bear. He lifted Spawn telekinetically and slammed him through the corridor wall into an adjacent office. The impact should have shattered bones. Instead, Spawn rolled with it, using the momentum to distance himself from the seventh sister before the symbiote's hunger overwhelmed his restraint. "What's wrong, aberration?" the fifth brother taunted, stalking through the breach. "Losing your nerve, or perhaps your parasite is fighting you for control." He was right. Spawn could feel it. The symbiote was stronger now, more assertive, harder to control. The taste of concentrated dark side power had awakened something in it, a hunger that wouldn't be denied much longer. If he continued feeding on Force users, continued draining dark side energy, the symbiote would eventually win. He'd become the monster everyone believed he was. But if he didn't feed, his necroplasm would eventually deplete. He'd be powerless in a galaxy that wanted him dead or enslaved. Kale quote S words echoed in his mind. "Promise me, if you feel yourself losing control, tell me. Let me help before it's too late." Was it already too late? "Spawn," Nira quote S voice cut through his internal struggle. "We have to go. More Inquisitors are coming. I'm detecting 3 more signatures converging on this building." 3 more, plus the fifth brother and seventh sister. 5 Inquisitors total, all focusing on him. Spawn could probably fight them all, could probably win by feeding on their dark side power. But each victory would push him closer to the edge, would strengthen the symbiote's grip on his consciousness. Or he could run, preserve his humanity at the cost of leaving enemies alive to hurt innocents another day. The fifth brother charged again, sensing Spawn's hesitation. His lightsaber came in low, a disemboweling strike executed with perfect form. Spawn's chains intercepted it automatically, but his heart wasn't in the fight. His mind was elsewhere, wrestling with the fundamental question of his existence. What was the point of fighting evil if you became evil in the process? Then, through the building's damaged walls, Spawn heard something. A sound that cut through the alarms and chaos and force-enhanced combat. A child's cry. Somewhere in this Imperial facility, a child was terrified and calling for help. Spawn's eyes blazed brighter. His chain struck the fifth brother with renewed fury, driving the Inquisitor back through sheer ferocity. "Nira," he commanded, "find that child, now." "What, Spawn? We don't have time." "Find that child." The Twi quote-like slicer, recognizing the absolute authority in his voice, pulled up building schematics on her datapad. "There's a detention level 2 floors down. They're holding political prisoners there, including," she went pale, "including families, people arrested for rebel sympathies. Oh, force, they're using children as leverage." Something in Spawn crystallized into cold, perfect clarity. This was why he fought. This was what separated him from the darkness, not the power he used, but what he used it for. The symbiote wanted to consume everything. Hell wanted him as a weapon of destruction. But Al Simmons, the man underneath the monster, wanted to protect innocents. Especially children. "Get to that detention level," Spawn ordered Nira. "Free everyone. I'll handle the Inquisitors." "But you said..." "I said I don't kill unless I have to." Spawn's voice went cold as grave earth. "I have to now." The fifth brother felt the change in Spawn's demeanor and actually hesitated. Something had shifted in the aberration, something fundamental. The restraint was gone, replaced by focused, terrible purpose. Spawn didn't give him time to adjust. He attacked with every ounce of power the symbiote could generate. Chains and cape working in perfect synchronization. The fifth brother's defenses, formidable as they were, couldn't withstand the onslaught. Spawn grabbed the Inquisitor's lightsaber arm, and instead of draining him, simply ripped the arm off at the shoulder with brute necroplasmic strength. The fifth brother's scream was cut short as Spawn's hand wrapped around his throat. Not to drain, but to choke. To kill quickly and efficiently, the way a soldier eliminated a threat. The Inquisitor thrashed, tried to use the Force, but Spawn's symbiote was countering every attempt, neutralizing every attack. "You hunt children," Spawn said quietly, his voice carrying more menace than any shout. "You serve an empire that takes families hostage. That makes you worse than the demons I've killed." The fifth brother's neck snapped with a sound like breaking wood. Spawn released the corpse and turned to the seventh sister, who'd recovered enough to stand. She looked at her dead partner, then at Spawn, and genuine fear entered her eyes. Not the fear of pain or defeat, but the fear of facing something that couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be turned, couldn't be stopped. "Tell Vader," Spawn said, his eyes burning like white stars, "that I'm done playing defense. Tell your Emperor that the next time he sends hunters after me, they won't be coming back. And tell everyone in your empire that there are lines you don't cross. Children are one of them." The seventh sister ran, simply turned and fled, abandoning all pride and training in favor of survival. Spawn let her go. She'd deliver his message. The Empire would know what happened here. 2 floors down, Nira had reached the detention level and was slicing through cell locks. Families emerged, humans, Twi'leks, even a Wookiee family, blinking in confusion and fear. The child Spawn had heard was a human girl, maybe 6 years old, clutching her mother's hand. Spawn appeared in the doorway, his massive form silhouetted by the corridor's emergency lighting. The prisoners flinched back, seeing a demon come to claim them. But then the little girl, with the fearless honesty of childhood, spoke. "Are you here to save us?" Spawn looked down at her, at the hope in her eyes despite everything she'd endured. This was what mattered. Not power, not revenge, not the symbiote's hunger. This child's hope was worth more than all the necroplasm in existence. "Yes," Spawn said simply, "I'm here to save you." 3 sectors away, Kale, Jace, and Cross had successfully raided the weapons depot. They'd loaded 2 freighters with enough armaments to supply a dozen rebel cells. As they lifted off, Kale felt a massive disturbance in the Force darkness surging, then suddenly focusing, becoming purposeful rather than chaotic. "Something happened," the former Jedi said quietly. "Spawn's changed. The dark side energy around him. It's organized now, controlled." "Is that good or bad?" Jace asked from the pilot's seat. "I don't know," Kale admitted, "but I think we're about to find out." On Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine felt it too, a shift in the Force, a new player on the board who just revealed their true nature. The aberration from beyond their reality had shown his hand. He protected the weak, fought for the innocent, and killed without hesitation when those lines were crossed. "Fascinating," the Emperor murmured. "He thinks he can fight the darkness while wielding it. He thinks he can remain pure while consuming corruption." Palpatine's smile widened. "Let us see how long that lasts. Let us see how many battles he can win before the darkness claims him completely. And when it does, when he finally falls, what a weapon he will make." In the Imperial comm hub, Spawn led the freed prisoners toward the exits. His necroplasm counter read 9,876. The fight had cost him, but he'd recovered enough from draining the 7th sister. The symbiote was quieter now, satisfied by the violence if not the restraint. But Spawn knew the truth. Tonight had been a turning point. He'd killed the 5th brother not in self-defense but in cold execution. He'd crossed a line, justified it with righteous purpose, and the symbiote had approved. That approval was dangerous, because next time the line would be easier to cross. The justifications would come faster. The descent into darkness would accelerate. Kale had been right to worry. Vader had been right about the dark side's seduction, and the symbiote had been right about this galaxy being perfect for them. The question wasn't whether Spawn would fall. The question was whether he'd realize it before it was too late. As the freed prisoners boarded the rebel transport that Nira had called for pickup, the little girl who'd asked if he was there to save them turned back. She waved at Spawn, a gesture of pure gratitude and trust. Spawn waved back, his massive clawed hand gentle despite its capacity for violence. For now, that gesture was enough. For now, he was still more man than monster. But in the shadows of his consciousness, the symbiote whispered, "For now." In the weeks that followed the assault on the Imperial communications hub, Spawn became a legend whispered in the underworld of Nar Shaddaa and beyond. The Empire designated him a priority threat, equal to high-ranking rebel commanders. Bounty hunters foolish enough to pursue the 100,000 credit reward on his head disappeared without a trace. Imperial garrisons reinforced their positions, instituted curfews, and increased patrols, all measures of an empire that had learned to fear. But fear was a double-edged sword in a galaxy ruled by it. Spawn continued his war against Imperial oppression, striking weapons depots, freeing prisoners, and eliminating Inquisitors who hunted Force sensitives. Each battle tested the fragile balance between his humanity and the symbiote's hunger. The necroplasmic entity grew stronger with every victory, feeding on the abundant dark side energy that permeated the Empire's atrocities. Spawn's power increased exponentially. He could now teleport greater distances. His chains struck with enough force to tear through blast doors, and his cape could shield against sustained turbolaser fire. Yet with each increase in power came a corresponding erosion of restraint. The symbiote's whispers grew louder, more persuasive, harder to resist. Spawn found himself rationalizing increasingly brutal methods. Imperial officers who surrendered were left traumatized rather than merely detained. Stormtroopers who fought back were drained of life force instead of being incapacitated. The line between justice and vengeance blurred with each passing day. Kale Oren watched his reluctant allies' transformation with growing concern. The former Jedi could sense through the Force how deeply the dark side had permeated Spawn's essence. Yet he also recognized something the Empire didn't. Spawn's core remained uncorrupted. The Hellspawn protected innocence with unwavering dedication, showed mercy to those who deserved it, and never lost sight of why he fought. He was becoming more dangerous, yes, but dangerous to the right enemies. The Rebel Alliance, initially wary of accepting help from something that radiated such darkness, gradually came to view Spawn as an invaluable asset. He operated where Jedi couldn't, fought battles that would have cost dozens of Rebel lives, and inspired hope in the most unlikely way, by proving that even the Empire's overwhelming might could be challenged by a single determined soul. Darth Vader encountered Spawn twice more in those weeks. Their battles were cataclysmic, reshaping entire city blocks and leaving Force disturbances that echoed for days. Each fight ended in stalemate, Vader's mastery of the Force countered by Spawn's ability to feed on dark side energy. Spawn's raw power countered by Vader's tactical brilliance and decades of combat experience. But something unexpected emerged from these confrontations. A mutual understanding between two beings who existed in darkness, yet retained fragments of who they once were. During their third encounter, amid the burning wreckage of an Imperial black site that Spawn had liberated, Vader spoke words that would haunt Simmons forever. "You believe you are different from me, that your darkness serves a righteous cause while mine serves tyranny. But we are the same, you and I, men transformed into weapons, wearing our prisons on our bodies, convinced that we have no choice but to be what we've become. The difference is that I have accepted what I am. You still fight it. That struggle will destroy you faster than any enemy." Spawn's response had been defiant, wreathed in chains and righteous fury. But alone in the darkness afterward, he wondered if Vader was right. How long could he wield Hell's power before it consumed him? How many battles could he win before the victory became meaningless because the man fighting them no longer existed? Emperor Palpatine observed it all with the patient calculation of a master manipulator. He made no move to eliminate Spawn, despite having the resources to do so. Instead, he watched, studied, and waited. The aberration was accelerating the galaxy's descent into darkness, even as he fought to protect the light. Every Imperial atrocity Spawn witnessed fed his rage. Every dark side user he drained strengthened his symbiote. Every victory pushed him closer to becoming the very thing he opposed. The Emperor understood what Spawn didn't yet, that in a galaxy saturated with the dark side, even the righteous became corrupted eventually. It was only a matter of time. And when Spawn finally fell completely, when the last vestiges of Simmons' humanity were consumed by the symbiote's hunger, the Emperor would be there to claim his prize. A warrior from beyond reality, wielding powers that transcended the Force, loyal to nothing but the darkness itself. But the Emperor's patience would prove to be a miscalculation, because Spawn wasn't fighting alone anymore. Kale's unwavering belief in redemption, Jace's pragmatic friendship, and the grateful faces of those he'd saved. These formed a tether to his humanity stronger than any chain his symbiote could forge. The little girl who'd asked if he was there to save her had given him something more powerful than dark side energy. Purpose beyond survival, meaning beyond vengeance. As Spawn stood on a rooftop overlooking Nar Shaddaa's endless vertical cityscape, Cape billowing in the polluted wind, he made a decision. He wouldn't flee from this galaxy or seek a way home. He wouldn't submit to the symbiote's hunger or surrender to the dark side's seduction. Instead, he would walk the razor's edge between damnation and redemption for as long as it took. He would be the weapon that chose its own targets, the monster that protected innocence, the darkness that fought for the light. The Empire had tried to study him, control him, and eliminate him. They'd failed to understand the most crucial truth about Al Simmons. He'd been to hell and back. He'd made deals with demons, died in betrayal, and clawed his way to a kind of redemption through sheer stubborn will. This galaxy's darkness, overwhelming as it was nothing he hadn't survived before. Somewhere in the Force, every Jedi who'd ever lived probably recoiled at what Spawn represented. A being who wielded darkness without falling, who consumed evil to fight evil, who proved that the Force's rigid dichotomy of light and dark wasn't absolute. He was the third path, forged not in this galaxy but dragged into it by cosmic accident. And he would show them all what happened when someone refused to play by their rules. The rebellion gained a champion they never asked for but desperately needed. The Empire gained an enemy that couldn't be categorized, controlled, or eliminated by conventional means. And the Force itself gained something unprecedented. A wound that healed even as it bled, a darkness that burned with righteous purpose, a Hellspawn who fought for heaven's cause. Al Simmons had died once serving his country. He'd been resurrected as a weapon of hell. Now, in a galaxy far, far away, he'd found a new war to fight, not because destiny demanded it, not because prophecy foretold it, but because when a child asked if he was there to save them, there had only ever been one answer he could give. Yes. The legend of Spawn had only just begun. The Empire would bleed, the innocent would be protected, and the galaxy would learn that some things, even things spawned from hell itself, chose to fight for something greater than themselves. In the end, that choice made all the difference. May the Force be with you. But if it isn't, if the light fails and the darkness closes in, know that somewhere in the shadows, wrapped in chains and hellfire, a Hellspawn stands guard. Not because he's good, but because he chooses to do good. Not because he's pure, but because he fights to protect the pure. Not because he belongs in this galaxy, but because this galaxy needs him. And for now, that's enough. #subscribe for more Star Wars crossover stories. If you enjoyed seeing Spawn tear through the Star Wars galaxy, imagine what other characters could do in this universe. Drop a comment below with your dream crossover. Would you want to see Batman strategizing against the Empire? Superman facing off against Darth Vader? Doctor Strange teaching Jedi forbidden knowledge? The Doomslayer hunting Sith like demons? Hit that subscribe button and let us know which character you want to see enter the Star Wars galaxy next. Your suggestion could become our next epic story. Until then, remember, in a galaxy of Force users and lightsabers, sometimes what you need is something from beyond the stars, something that doesn't play by the rules, doesn't fear the darkness, and refuses to surrender. Something like Spawn. May the Force be with you, or may something even more powerful be on your side.